Welcome to Transcended. I'm Joe, and I'm the dad.
And I'm Raya, and I'm the daughter.
The doctor says to my buddy, you want the good news or the bad news?
And what did he say?
Well, he says, give me the good news.
Sure.
So the doctor says, you're going to have a disease named after you.
I think I wasn't expecting the punchline to hit quite so fast. I figured we'd get some bad news in there too, which is a little bit about what we're talking about here today is what are we expecting versus what do we think might happen? We're talking about what do we know will last in this coming year and what do we hope will change in this coming year. This is looking forward to the next year. We like to take a look at this every so often and think through what do we need to be aware of? What are some of the current events that are important for us? And what do we really need to be focused on through all of this?
When it comes to 2026, I can tell you I'm almost certain one of the things I'm going to hear.
Yeah?
Auld Lang Syne.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I think, when we were first looking at this one, we were talking about, we would just look at what we can expect coming in 2026. And I said, that's not one that I, as a individual, feel as comfortable with because I like to think in terms of the big principles that stay solid over time.
Yeah.
That's where I feel like I do my best work and where I am much more observant. And we do from time to time address things that are changing. But we thought if we look at the things that are staying the same versus the things that we expect will be changing or the things that we hope will change.
There are things that are solid, and we know that. There are things that will not change, that will keep us the same in many ways. And they're the old tried saying that, yes, the sun will come out tomorrow. Of course, those kinds of things are true. And there are things that happen in our lives that really are almost certain that will happen. That we know that, what do they say? Death and taxes, right?
Yeah.
That's certain. And there are things like that. There are other things that are fairly certain that we know are going to be around for a long time. We know, for example, that we're probably going to have farms in this area because this is a farming community. All the farms aren't going to go away in 2026.
Right. Now, we don't know how AI will change things going forward, but that's not really what we're talking about. We're not looking at predictive things in the far future. We're really talking about what are we hoping will change for us as an LGBTQ community and as allies. So let's start first with what we know will last.
Yes.
We've got some things that I think if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, are really pretty solid. So for instance, we know that LGBTQ identities are real and enduring. And I think the time where we've said, oh, well, maybe this is just a phase, or, maybe this isn't the real you, we're well past that as a society. And this is locked in now that we know LGBTQ plus identities have existed in every culture and in every era. But unlike sometimes in the past where they've tended to gloss over things or say, well, yeah, we're not going to let that come out into the open. We know now that we exist and we're not going back in the closet.
I remember one of the very first questions I asked you after I got over the shock of you telling me that you were going to be transgender. After that happened, I think somewhere maybe a few days later, I said, what is the likelihood that you're going to go back to something else? How many people do that? And your answer?
I don't remember what answer I gave you at the time.
You said almost no one, once they make that transition, goes back or wants to go back. it's the same with the entire LGBTQIA community, the whole group. Once they've made that change to become their authentic self, it's not impossible that someone would want to go back, but it's very, very rare.
It is quite rare. Yes, it is quite rare. I do know one trans woman that has detransitioned, but I have not talked to her since then. We were not all that close. We hung out a few times, and then she said, I've chosen to detransition. She said, I feel like other people kind of talked me into it, but I wonder, even there, I wonder if somebody talked her into feeling bad about her transition. I don't know. I should really go back and check in on her and see how. I should say he, because he that is what he told me when he detransitioned. He said, I'm using he pronouns now, and I'm using my old name now, and so
how interesting.
but that is exceptionally rare. So it does happen from time to time, and I would not want to ever marginalize those people or say that their story doesn't count or isn't fair, but it is rare. It is very rare. And I'll tell you what I did. When I first transitioned, I wasn't sure how this was all going to pan out either, because we never know how our feelings are going to actually pan out when it's all said and done. So what I did is I thought, I'm going to keep some male presenting clothes and just keep them in my closet just in case, because maybe there'll be a time where I'm feeling like I'm not getting it or I'm not doing well, and nobody's seeing me as me, and I want to just have a day where I can go out and not have people not see me as me, or who knows, whatever it was. So I just kept some clothes in my closet. And every day I would get up and I'd look in my closet and I would say, do I want to wear those today? And I'd think, well, not today, but keep those just in case. And then the next day I would get up and I'd look at those clothes and I'd think, is this the day that I want to wear those again? Well, not today, but I want to keep them around just in case. And day after day after day, I found myself saying the same thing. I don't want to wear those clothes today, but I want to keep them around just in case. And after about 2 years, I realized that day will never, ever, ever come. There will never be a day that I want to wear those again. And then at that point, I realized I don't need to keep these around anymore. So I realized those things are staying the same for me.
People clearly don't grow out of being LGBTQ+. What lasts is true authenticity. That's the whole idea, right?
Yeah, definitely. The more that you are not covering up, you think about it this way. If you're putting on a show for somebody and covering up who you are authentically, why would you ever go back to that once you're finally out?
Yeah.
Once you're finally able to be who you really are, there's no reason to go back to who you are not. The only reason that we do that is because we're worried about what people are going to say.
So what we say we know will last is that our identities are the real deal.
Equally as important, we know that the power of community will continue to last. And that's what we've devoted ourselves to on this podcast, is to preserving relationships. We know that whether you lived 100 years ago or 50 years ago or 50 years in the future or any time in there, when you get to the end of your life, what is going to matter?
Yeah.
It's going to be relationships.
Oh, that's
it's
so true.
Always relationships. We always talk about that. You never get to the end of your life and think, I should have worked a little more. I should have done that extra overtime. I should have done that extra project at work that they had me doing. No, everybody always says, I wish I had spent more time with family. I wish I had invested more in my relationships.
Yes.
That's always going to be the case. But it's not just the case with family as well, but it's also the power of chosen community. And in LGBTQ plus community, we know this very well because many of us have been rejected by family and by those that used to be so close to us. So we have to go out and find our new family. And so we find ourselves here at the end of the holiday season with our most important holidays being spent with our LGBTQ plus friends because home no longer feels like home any longer. And if that's you and you're listening to this podcast, we are right there with you. We understand the value of that community and how important having those friendships are.
But with us, we are still the same family. Fortunately for you and for me,
And
we're
I think
closer than we've ever been.
yes, we are. And we want to promote that anytime we can. We will always be against the tearing down of relationships and always be for building up relationships.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's another thing that will last is community, relationships that you have. Those things will last. They'll be around for the foreseeable future. Another thing that'll be around for the foreseeable future is love and the human connection. You know, the romantic relationships, that kind of thing, the close friendships that are really central to the life of you and the other people. Despite political things that try to change us or cultural shifts, there are lasting relationships. And studies show that affirming relationships dramatically improve mental health and resilience. And guess what? People with affirming relationships generally live longer.
Yeah.
There's a logical reason for that. You know, when you've got somebody there that you can rely on and they can rely on you, it's rewarding both ways. It's rewarding for you to know that there's somebody you can turn to. And it's rewarding for you to know that you can be somebody who's there for them. And it does make a big difference when you have that type of relationship. People also have this kind of relationship with their pets. And that can also be very rewarding and important to your well-being. And it's also shown that people who have a dog or a cat or another animal that they're very close to, that can make a very big positive difference in your life. And in fact, they get less sicknesses than other people do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why that is, but they do.
I have a close friend that has an emotional cat, and I was thinking about getting an emotional emu. I think that we have discovered that just having this time weekly where we're recording our podcasts has been that for us. And I hope that you in the audience have a time where you have something built into your schedule to make that connection with the people that are closest to you. Maybe it's time for you to start a podcast this coming year. If so, reach out to us and I would be happy to help with that, give you some pointers and some tips. I'm sure Dad would be as well.
Absolutely.
But there are ways that you can invest in that love and human connection, whether that is romantic or whether that is family or whether that is just a good friendship. There are always ways that we can pour into those relationships and make those stronger than ever because it does matter, and those are the things that last. Another thing that's going to last, and this one is intrinsic to who we are, is that we have a persistent drive for self-expression. We are made to create. We want to do things. We want to make things. We want to build things. We want to express our creativity. We want to take the world and we want to make something new that didn't exist beforehand. And when you are doing that, is always going to lead to a healthier, happier life.
It will. And it will tell the rest of the world that you are part of the entire society. And when you are a part of that society, you become much more accepting of what society is and understanding it as they become more accepting of who you are and what you do. And we know that we are seeing today in things like movies, television, and expression of art in many ways that people are appearing more and more often as part of normal society, which we are. And that will continue. That will continue in so many ways. That is something that we know is here to stay.
Now, if you are a regular listener to this podcast, when we talk about the things that we're hoping will change, it's not hard to create a list of things that, when you look around at the world, of things that you wish would change. But I think this is going even to the next level of things that we really believe we have good reason for thinking that they may change over this coming year. And we'll talk about that right after this.
Hi, I'm Andy Barrett, a Lutheran pastor and a supporter of this podcast. I see Transcendent as a ministry. I've pointed many people toward these recorded conversations full of so much heart and care and warmth, as well as some of Joe's jokes, which are hands down the worst part of this podcast. But even they make me smile. I'm one of the many genuinely blessed by Transcendent, and I encourage you to join me in supporting this podcast by giving as little as $3 a month. Go to transcendent.com and click support.
So what are the things that we're hopeful are going to change? These are things that I think we have good reason for optimism. Now, maybe not necessarily in 2026. Some of these are a little overly optimistic for the next 1 year. But I think over the next few years, we can have optimism for these.
I remember in one podcast, an earlier podcast that we did, that you equated this whole idea of accepting of the LGBTQ plus community to accepting the Emancipation Proclamation and knowing that all people are free and not slaves. And it took a long time for that to happen. It doesn't happen overnight. So is all of this going to happen in 2026? Probably not. But we do think that these things are ultimately going to change, and ultimately the things that seem to be really major consideration now, sometime in the future, are not going to be an issue. And one of those is harmful political weaponization. And I think that that is going to be reduced further and further as time moves on. The desire for a future where transgender and queer identities aren't used as political pawns. It just is unacceptable, and people will eventually realize it's just not the logical human experience. That will be a big deal when it happens, and it'll happen over time, step at a time.
One thing that I was really grateful for, back on September 10th, you and I recorded our response to the Charlie Kirk assassination. It was a short little podcast that we did. It was about 5 minutes long.
Yes.
We did it the day of.
Yes.
And our immediate response was, we need to tone down the political rhetoric. Now, I was really surprised because we just sort of threw it together as we believe that this is really important, but I didn't know who was going to listen. It's outside of the format of what we normally do. We're normally doing half-hour podcasts. This was a 5-minute one, and it wasn't really our normal thing. But I was shocked to discover that we were picked up by one of the local radio stations.
That's true.
That broadcast it on a Saturday morning because they felt that this was a message that was so important. And I was very grateful for that. Now, I think one of the things I've been frustrated with is the way that political rhetoric has been used as a weapon to beat people over the head. And I think, and sometimes I think Charlie Kirk probably even fell prey to that he was doing some of that. Some of what he said, I think, I believe that he was trying to do what he thought was the right thing, but sometimes I think he got swayed as well by what he knew was going to generate views and clicks and gotcha moments and that kind of thing. I think what he did well, he did really well. Now, I am hopeful that that message of toning down the political rhetoric will in fact go forth. And the reason why is because I think that people are so tired. They're so tired of all of this. And I know one of the things that I am tired of is when people will use harmful rhetoric. And then when we in the LGBTQ plus community get upset about it, and we say, hey, that's harmful what you're saying. And then people say, oh, look at you. Look at what how sensitive you are. Or they might say, oh, look at you. Yeah, you're just labeling everything that you dislike as bad, but you can't tolerate another opinion. But if they stop to look at it, they'll realize what they say really is harmful and really is hurtful. And I think we have some good reasons to think that the politics may be changing. At least I'm sure hopeful. I'm sure hopeful for that.
And I'm hopeful for that as well. And with the political situation, we also hope that what will change in the near future is the hope for long-term legal and civil rights stability instead of all these cycles and the battles that are going on. Let's hope that that's something that we're going to be seeing in the future as well.
We have talked a lot about this year's Supreme Court cases that are coming up and hoping that those come out well.
Yeah.
And originally, I think we had a lot of reason for concern. But I am hopeful now. I've been watching a lot with Supreme Court and with the Supreme Court decisions, and to discover that even some of the judges that I have viewed to be the most conservative on many issues, they don't always vote how you think they're going to vote. They don't always make their rulings the way that you think they're going to make their rulings. And oftentimes there is more commonality between them on cases that you don't hear about as often. Or they will rule in different ways from what you would expect just along partisan lines. And I'm hopeful that that trend will continue. That one is maybe more wishful thinking, but there have been enough cases where they have broken from ranks that if you only watch what the news says that's trying to get you angry, you think, well, it's only along political lines. But it's not always.
One more thing that you're looking at for things that we think will change is that there'll be greater political understanding and acceptance. So there'll be less misinformation about gender identity and sexuality and those types of things, and maybe wider recognition that the LGBTQ plus community are just regular people, normal, healthy variations in humanity.
As you might say, that we would just be seen as normal as being left-handed.
Exactly.
I'm very hopeful for some changes in religion as well. And here's why I'm hopeful. Again, this is one that's bigger than 2026. But in general, going forward, I think the people that have generally predicted that religion would be going away, those people are proven wrong time and time and time again, because humans need something bigger than ourselves in order to put our faith in and our trust in. And we just constantly are coming back to that way of making meaning and looking to faith as a way to find that meaning. But I think as the younger folks, as millennials are now taking over more and more of the leadership roles and leadership positions, a lot of more mainstream conservative churches slowly are beginning to change their tune.
Oh, I know that that's true. And I've seen that. I've seen it in our own denomination, which is very good. And we're seeing it more and more. It is moving in that direction. I don't see the people who are in that area who are supporting or moving toward support moving the other way at all. I don't see any of that. All I see is the people who are moving toward acceptance.
I would liken it very much to how we used to view interracial relationships in the past. that there used to be some very conservative churches that said, oh, you can never have an interracial relationship. And now there are certainly pockets of our country where people would say, still look down on an interracial relationship, but it's much less.
Oh, much
It's going to
less.
be, it will be the minority somewhere. It's going to be a pocket here and a pocket there. But in general, I think most places are going to say, why would you ever think to come down on somebody for marrying somebody of a different race?
I know.
And I think that's how LGBTQ is going to be. But, if you go back 50 years, there were a lot of people that would have said that interracial marriages were wrong.
Oh,
And
yes,
I
they
think-
certainly were.
I think as we go forward, we're going to see more and more people being accepting of LGBTQ plus relationships.
You are seeing that as you do with LGBTQ first in the media. I see that. I see commercials now with interracial couples. There's a current one on there that is so good. It's for one of the laundry detergents, Tide, I think it is, and it's an interracial couple. But I see this more and more. I see it in the movies. I see it on the commercials. I hear it in so many different ways, and it's wonderful. And you can see that same thing is going to be continuing in the LGBTQ plus community. So that's another thing we hope will change, and we know we are moving more in that direction. We will for this next year, 2026. We will be further ahead with that than we were in 2025. Now let's take a look at healthcare and accessibility. That's another thing that we can say might be something that we hope is going to change in the future. And that is, of course, affirming care for trans people. That's a big one.
Right. Now, one thing that we're seeing in this, we expect this trend to continue into 2026, is that medical and nursing schools are expanding their LGBTQ plus health and cultural competency training. They're having pride-focused clinical guidance, encouraging tailored preventive care and gender-affirming therapies and knowledge and stigma-aware practice. So we're seeing this already, and there are some programs that are planning to implement more of those kind of LGBTQ sensitivity. It's not just sensitivity towards, your feelings, although that's important as well, but really thinking through what kind of healthcare issues do trans people need that are different from what cisgender people need? What kind of specific care needs to be different when somebody is in a same-sex couple versus when they're in an opposite sex couple, those kinds of things. And how do non-binary folks have different needs in healthcare and in mental health care and those kinds of things? We're seeing programs actually addressing that, bringing it out, and making sure that it's explicit. And we expect that trend to continue in 2026.
Another thing we think we might see more of in 2026 is less fear and more belonging. Young queer people growing up without shame messages. I think that is going to continue to move in the positive direction. Families becoming naturally accepting. I had an interesting comment with somebody at a fast food restaurant just this past week who said to me something about, I'd like to come to your church sometime. She said, I have a transgender daughter. And I said, well, that's really interesting. I'd like to talk to you about that because I also have a transgender daughter. And we need to get together and visit that a little bit. And she said, she says, I'd love to do that. She said, in the beginning, my daughter said, I didn't know how you were going to take this. I was afraid to say anything. And I looked at her and I said, doesn't make any difference to me. It doesn't change. You're still my child. I still love you the same. A world where LGBTQ plus people can live without fear and discrimination or violence. That's the long-term one. That's one we're really looking for.
So those are some of the things that we are hopeful and we believe we have reason for hope. Now, we are optimists, of course, but we hope that that's part of what draws you here is to come back week after week to hear some of that optimism. We're grateful to have you here, and we hope that you have gotten a little dose of positivity to take forth into your life.
Who you are is real, worthy, and enduring. The world can and will change, and we're part of making that happen right here at Transcendent, and we're going to continue to do that with your help. How can you help, you ask? Wait a minute, I want to hear you say that again. You can help by spreading the word. Just tell people what you found in Transcendent.
I hope that you will do what Dad did with this woman that he met at the restaurant. Tell them, I've got this great podcast from a father and a daughter. The daughter's transgender. I think you'd really like it. It's called Transcendent.
Because we're here dedicated to keeping families together and saving lives one podcast at a time.
And with that,
We'll see you Monday.